Top of the morning to you. It's Hump Day. You know what that means. Time for the Southern California Writers Association Hump Day Book Tour. Every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., we bring a new author to talk about books and introduce their work. And this morning, we're lucky enough to welcome Mike Faricy. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Maddie. How are you?
Good. So let's tell everybody a little bit about you. Mike was born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. He developed his love for books from his parents. He's written 75 books in 4 crime series. We're going to audit that later, so we'll talk about that. The Dev Haskell series, the Corridor Man series, the Hotshot series, and the Jack Dillon Dublin Tales series. Mike lives in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Dublin, Ireland, which makes him the most boring guy in 2 towns. Wow, that's a hard standard to live up to, Mike.
But I managed to do it. I am Mr. Boring. Yeah.
Who you are. Well, managing to write 75 books does not make you boring in my book. So how did you start writing, and what brought you into writing mysteries?
How did I start writing? I had a love for books as a young kid. It was our evening deal. My folks would read a book to us, and we would go up to the library once a week, and we could pick out kids' books and stuff. And my favorite was George the Pig, because he would not share his birthday cake, and then on the last page he exploded because he ate the thing by himself. And I loved that part.
Justice.
Yeah, exactly. I grew to love crime fiction, both in movies and reading. And as a kid, I was fortunate. I went to Catholic grade schools and high school, and I had a bunch of patient teachers who, despite the way I behaved, still taught me to read and write and encouraged me. And I started writing on this high school newspaper, and then some stuff in college and when I was in the Army and stuff. And ultimately, I began writing award-winning first chapters. And I probably had 50 of them done, and then decided one day that I should either fish or cut bait here. So I finished a book, and there's a local crime fiction author here, William Kent Kruger. Somehow, I forget how, I got his phone number and called him, and graciously, he invited me to lunch. And we talked over lunch. And at the end of it, I pulled out my 3-inch high manuscript and said, "Would you like to read this?" And he looked at me, he goes, "No, not at all." And then he went on and explained that actually for first works, we probably all have something that we keep under our bed. And I thought, that's interesting. And I went home and read it and thought, yeah, this should be under the bed. But got me started. I wrote 6 books and submitted them in those days to, I think it was the big 6 publishers in New York, along with a number of other publishers. You'd write a query letter, 2 paragraphs about the book, 2 sentences about yourself, and then enclosed a self-addressed stamped envelope so that I could get my rejections immediately, which I got. And then one day I got a rejection. It was actually my envelope, and on the front, it was from a big 6 publisher. On the front, in a purple stamp, it said, "Return to sender." And I turned it over, and it was never opened. And there was a handwritten note on the back that said, "This does not fit our needs at this time." They'd never opened the envelope. But there was a side entrance into the playground, and it was ebooks, and they had just started. So I submitted my ebook on Amazon, started out as an indie author, and haven't looked back. And it's been very good to me.
What a great story. And one of the several reasons that I'm excited that you're here today is because we brought you in honor of St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, happy St. Patrick's Day. So you live part-time in Dublin and part-time in the US, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And being there, I was just reading, I mean, I spent 8 days in Ireland, so you'd think I'd be able to speak Gaelic. So I was just reading some of the pronunciation. I was going to read a section of the blurb on your book, but I can't even pronounce some of these words, and I think that should be inherent somewhere in my genetic code, but I missed that part.
Well, you know, it's not a Romance language, so
No, it's not.
it's complete memorization. I can ask what time it is, but if you told me in Irish, I wouldn't be able to understand you. You know, I can't count to 10.
But you know, I think, but one of the things that did stick with me is that storytelling gene. I mean, every cab driver in Ireland can tell a story better than most people. So I'm curious, what made you, I mean, you spend a lot of time there, but what made you decide to set the Jack Dillon series there? And I mean, it's such a great fish out of water setup, but how did that start? And tell us a little bit about him as a character.
Well, the reason it started was because I was over there so often, approximately 6 months a year, never all in one block, that I know Dublin and I know Ireland pretty well. So it was just a natural to do that. Plus, then I can write off my flights over and back. So there we go. That's the reason. The series, Jack Dillon is a U.S. Marshal, and he is sent to Dublin ostensibly to escort a prisoner back to the United States for trial. Through a series of events, the prisoner that he's to escort is shot at the airport by Russian mobsters. Dillon gets in a gunfight with them, saves a couple of An Garda Síochána, which is the Irish police, in the gunfight. And then he's in deep weeds with his boss back in the US. And the Irish police come to his defense and say, you know what, why don't you just send him over here and he can be adjusted to us and we'll take care of him, which he does. And from that point forward, he's still a US Marshal, but working in Dublin.
So I was reading some of the reviews of your work and comparing your work to Elmore Leonard, which, you know, it doesn't get much better than that.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
So when you approach writing this series, and I think the most recent one is Picture Perfect, is that?
That's correct. And in fact, that releases in a week on the 26th of next week.
Okay. So how do you decide, or how did you decide on this adventure for Marshal Dillon, which every time I said that, I have to say Marshal Dillon, but.
It is very loosely following a little bit of Whitey Bulger, the Boston criminal, who for a while was in Ireland. And the thrust of the story is a criminal in hiding in the US, actually he's down in Florida, locates a guy in Ireland who basically is physically a carbon copy of himself. And he pays this guy a monthly fee and then sends him a credit card. And he wants him to go out for 2 evenings every month to a fancy restaurant with a lovely woman. And the criminal will pay for dinner and 2 nights in a hotel. And all this guy has to do is have his picture taken. And so what happens is the pictures ultimately end up in newspapers and things. And the criminal sends them himself to some people in the FBI and in the Boston newspaper, the Boston Globe, to convince them that indeed he's not hiding in Florida, he's in Ireland. And they believe it. And they ultimately send a word to US Marshal Jack Dillon, try and find this guy. And this is the restaurant we think he was at just last week. Check it out. From there, it develops and things go downhill very quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you're writing this series, and we talked about you have 4 other series,
Yes.
or 4 series total.
Yes.
How do you decide which series you're going to add to next, And do you have a favorite character?
I have just a standard schedule, series 1, 2, 3, 4. I do one, the next one is 2, the next one is 3. Just, and I'm such a boring guy that I'm writing all the time. So I'm cranking out 6, 7 books a year. And I'm down to a routine. So, I have an outline that I work off of. The same routine throughout. There's 2 or 3 subplots plus my main tale, and somehow it just happens.
That's the magic.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you have word goals for yourself every day, or page goals, or?
I try and do 3,000 words a day. Sometimes that ends up 2,500. Sometimes it ends up at 4,000. Just depends. The page goal right now, the most popular reading device, a digital reading device for books in the United States, which is my largest market, is a cell phone. And so what I've done, yeah, and I read on a Kindle, and I'm not going to be reading on a cell phone. But when you think of that, my books were 80,000, maybe 85,000 words. I've cut that back to 60 to 65,000 because of reading on a cell phone. I haven't heard one negative reply from anyone. It's been over 2.5, 3 years now. And it allows me, it increased my productivity by about 20%. So glad to do it. And that's the roughly the count.
So of those 3,000 words a day, are they the same word? Do they have to be different words? Can you write the same word 4,000 times? How do you do that? Do you write?
Lot of dialogue, a lot of description. I've run the work through 3 different editors before it's released. And they make 99% of the time excellent adjustments that I'll follow. So that's it. It's this is not high brain type of stuff. This is I'm not in literature. I write entertainment, and that's what it's for.
So I was just going to ask you, what can someone expect when they pick up a book written by Mike Faricy? What's different about it than from other books maybe in the genre, and what can they expect?
Hopefully they'll expect and get a very good time, a relaxing read. I get a lot of responses from people or emails from people saying, I couldn't put it down. I, put the coffee on, finished it at about 2 a.m., that type of stuff. One of my favorite responses was a woman who sent me an email, and she said, I love your series. He always ends up with a nice looking girl, but she's young and attractive, and well, I'm not young anymore. I think she said she was 47 or 48, which is still young to me. But I thought, So the next book I wrote, my chief protagonist ends up with a woman who's 15 years older, and he can't keep up with her. And if you're looking for sex in my books, you might as well just move on, because it usually consists of a couple having a glass of wine or a couple of beers, and the next thing she's kissing him in the morning and saying, "Let yourself out, I got to get to work." So
it's just like real life.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of most of my books, the female character will say to my chief protagonist, "Don't take this the wrong way, but please don't ever call me again."
Yeah.
And we've all, well, at least I've been there a number of times, but it's life.
So they're usually a work in progress.
Yes, and there's a lot of work to do. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, we love it. And like I said before, I read lots of reviews of your work, and we can tell just by talking to you that you can tell a great story. So I think that's one other thing that people can expect, is a great story with a little humor, maybe a little edge to it. So I'm looking forward to reading more of your books. I'm
Yeah.
excited that you were here today to help us at least celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Next time, maybe we'll get a chance to talk about writing with Ireland as a character. I'd love to talk to you about that.
You got it. I love it. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mike. Everyone, if you enjoyed today's bookshot, you can go to SCWA Writers Online on YouTube to see a wonderful replay of our discussion here with Mike or other videos like this. And until next week, we hope that you stay safe and we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.